It's The Log. I'm Charles Purcell. Happy spring. It is meteorological spring as of March 1st. So this is the first time we're talking. Talked to you last on Leap Day. Hope you had a good Leap Day. Hope you leapt into something good. Yeah, of course the official spring doesn't happen until March 21st, but meteorological spring is March, April, and May. So I choose to think of it that way. We had a pretty easy winter, and I should knock on some wood here. We certainly could have. It's only early March. We know we can have big snowstorms in March and even in April. A couple of years ago, we had snow in May, so it can still happen. But knock on wood. A pretty simple, easy winter, really. That was nice. It's hard to say that, of course, without thinking about the climate crisis. But we know climate and weather are two different things, so we can still be happy when there's nice weather. Don't have to feel guilty. That's my thing. It's my thing to feel guilty. We talked on one show, I forget, that was a while ago, how that's the real difference between conservatives and liberals. Everybody lives mostly kind of the same way. They consume things and use energy. And the only difference is conservatives don't feel any guilt about it. And liberals do. So we all behave exactly the same way. It's just some of us feel guilty about it. So I'm riddled with guilt all of the time. So happy to have an easy winter and an early spring if indeed that's the case. Hey, I want to mention there's a Facebook game. It's a political game, and they put you on the grid. We've talked about this before in another context, which is actually what I'm getting to. The left, right, center horizontal line represents whether you're left or right, liberal or conservative, and then the vertical line up and down at the bottom is libertarian, and at the top is authoritarian. So there you measure yourself on that scale. Well, I want to warn you off of this little Facebook game because, those games are just to get more information about you. And even worse, this one is really unsophisticated and downright wrong. Because on this one, instead of authoritarianism on the top of that vertical line, they call it communitarianism. And that's just not right. It's fatally flawed right in the design. So if you've done this little game, or if it sounds interesting, I want to point you to something much better. Because there's one that's been out for a while, and it's called The Political Compass. And you can find it at politicalcompass.org. And this is way more legit. I'm going to read from its website here about the political compass. The enduring appeal of the political compass lies in its universality and the fact that it's neither a fly-by-night election time survey nor a shallow personality test. And that's what this little Facebook game I've been talking about, that's what that looks like. Our test profiles political personalities applicable to all democracies. Our expanding range of features enables you to compare the politics of different countries and political figures past and present. So that's just a quick little intro. I really find it interesting, fascinating, legit, and as the little intro says, you can plot different politicians, both past and present, on the grid, and then see how that compares to you. So it takes you just a few minutes to answer several questions about your political beliefs, and then it plots you on the grid, which is what the other one does too, but again, it's just a kind of a really shallow, dumb little game. If you're interested in this, and I find it really pretty great, go to the Political Compass. That's politicalcompass.org. And when I took it, of course, I am in the extreme lower left-hand corner. I'm further to the left and further libertarian than Gandhi. That's the closest person I could find. So again, the left-right is the horizontal, authoritarian versus libertarian is the up and down. So to give you some idea, Hitler, for example, they plot at the very top of the authoritarian line, which is fascism, okay? And kind of in the middle, just a little bit to the right. It helps to picture a clock. It'll help me tell you this without being able to show it to you. Thatcher is at about 2 o'clock. Thomas Friedman, the columnist, who a lot of people know, he's at about 3:30, very far to the right, a little bit down on the libertarian side. And let's see if I can find it for you here real quick. I click on USA, the U.S. presidential candidates 2020. So just to give you some idea, Bernie Sanders, as you would think, is in the left-hand lower quadrant, but only just right in the upper right-hand corner of that quadrant. he's not far at all. I'm way down on the opposite end from Bernie. Somebody like the current occupant of the White House, very, very high on the authoritarian scale, very, very far right on the right versus left scale. See who else of interest here. They've got Elizabeth Warren in the upper right-hand quadrant, just barely. Pretty much everybody in American politics is in the upper right-hand quadrant. A little more toward authoritarianism, all of them on the right. Every single person except for Bernie. Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, they're all in that quadrant. And I bring that up because A, I found it interesting, and B, I was annoyed by that dopey little Facebook game, and C, the real reason is we have to talk about the current state of the primary race. Now, we're not going to spend every week on this, I promise. But we are right now at a very pivotal point. When last we spoke, I was 100% accurate. And I was 100% accurate because I hedged all my bets. If you listened to last week's show, I said anything can happen. I said by the time South Carolina and Super Tuesday are over, Bernie may have fallen, others may have risen. So that's how you can make your predictions be true if you make them vague enough. So yeah, anything did happen. But actually, if you think about it, the impossible happened. We all knew that the Democratic Party, the corporate media, were going to react, and they did react to Bernie's big Nevada win. And boy, did they. And well, before I get too far into this, the reason I brought up the political compass, I want you to know where I'm coming from. I'm off the map compared to everybody else. Like I said, all the political leaders are pretty much in the upper right-hand quadrant. I'm as far to the lower left as you can get. I don't think mathematically I could get any further down into that corner. So when I'm observing these political races, I don't really have a dog in the fight. Now, obviously, Bernie Sanders is the closest to me, but he's still a mile away. I've always said, if and when Bernie got elected president, I would immediately be the loyal opposition because I'm much further to the left. So, here are my thoughts on what happened last week and where we are going forward. Let's start with going forward. If Joe crushes Bernie in Michigan, I think it's probably just over. Just literally over. It's not over right now. I want to make sure that's clear. I know a lot of you Bernie supporters were pretty disappointed, and I certainly understand why you were disappointed. And you may have thought, well, there it is. It's all rigged against us. And that could very well be. But I want to tell the Bernie supporters out there, keep doing what you're doing. Keep your enthusiasm, volunteer, whatever you text, call, post on social media. That's fine. I'm going to hedge my bets again. I don't pretend to know things I don't know. All right? Give me that much credit. Now, if Bernie crushes Joe, or even just wins by a small margin in Michigan, now we got a game again. But the next few states are southern and conservative, and Joe will probably have a little run after Michigan. Even if he doesn't take Michigan, he'll have a little bit of a run. And then we get into later states. Wisconsin, April 7th, everybody, all my friends in Wisconsin. Make sure to mark that on your calendar. But I want to tell you what upset me, what really upset me about this. And I'm sorry, I've kind of buried my lead here. This is the first time I'm getting to it. My real bottom line is, voters, you guys, you're not pundits. You're not prognosticators. You're not pontificators. You're not paid to sit at a panel and spout your opinion. Your only job is to do the basic research, and it's not that hard. It's not rocket science. You look at the candidates. You look at their record. You look at their policy positions. They're there for you to find, even though the press doesn't talk about them, and that's something else I want to get into. Know their positions, observe their demeanor, look at their record, and then vote for the person who A, you agree with, and B, you think has the right experience, record, and temperament to handle the job. Please, please, I'm begging you, for all of the 2/3 of Americans who haven't voted yet, and all of my great Wisconsin friends with that coming up. And if anybody's listening in Michigan right now, I'm begging you, don't cast a strategic vote. That's what they call it. Nobody knows, and I hate to even say the word. I'm embarrassed to even say the word. Nobody knows who's more electable. Don't base your vote on all this punditry and gamesmanship. It's not the pregame for the Super Bowl. It's not a game at all. Everybody in the media wants to just spend all of their time on the what-ifs and the maybe-sos and the down ballot and this demographic and that demographic, and they get so tied up in it, and that's all we're given. You got to turn off those damn televisions. I was so disappointed, not because I'm all in for Bernie. Again, I'm the alien here observing from afar. But I was so disappointed when I saw voters talking to reporters and saying, one after another, oh, I agree with Bernie. I want Medicare for all. I want free college tuition. Those are things that any just society should have. And of course I agree with those positions. But I'm casting a strategic vote because I think Joe Biden is more electable. And I think he'll be better for the down-ballot candidates. They're just spouting mindlessly things they've heard on the panel political shows. And if you were to go deeply into the data, you would find that nobody in this whole wide mother-loving world knows less about the future than those pundits sitting at the panels. Their record is abysmal. They get things wrong all the time. So my great disappointment over those tumultuous 3 or 4 days, well, here's how it ran down. Bernie crushed it in Nevada. And he and his supporters got to enjoy that win for about 10 minutes before the establishment and everybody in the press, all for their own various reasons, lost their collective minds, brought up this whole ridiculous socialist debate, this socialism debate again, in which I started with, Bernie is a centrist on that political scale. On any honest reading of the political spectrum, Bernie is a centrist. I'm the leftist. See, that's how I know this. I know Bernie's not a lefty because I'm a lefty, and I see the difference. Speaking of social media, there's a nice little meme, a little graphic that has the spectrum on top, and that's labeled perception. It puts Bernie on the far left end. It puts Stephen Miller on the far right end. It puts Joe Biden right in the center. And then the bottom bar, the same bar, only now it's tilting down to the right. And that's the reality. And that's where Bernie is at the center. Stephen Miller has fallen off the edge, followed closely behind by the current occupant. And every other candidate, everybody's on the right. If I were on that scale, I'd be hanging on to the far left end like Jack Dawson hanging out of the Titanic. So, of course he's not a socialist. Of course he's not a radical. This is ridiculous. The other thing the voters told the reporters and they told all the pollsters is that they agree on all of the issues. I guess I already talked about that. On that political scale, most Americans are centrists. And any centrist wants Medicare for all. Again, on any honest scale, they're all centrists. Most people. I'm the radical. I'm on the left. That's how I recognize this. So you got to boycott the punditry. Please, for the love of God. If you want to be an informed voter, if you want your vote to really matter, if you want to play a part in this dying democracy, if you want to try to save it, turn your back on the pundits. They've got nothing to tell you. There's excellent reporting. There's excellent journalism. Every candidate has a website. They have a public record. It's so easy. It's not rocket science. I'm begging you, don't make a so-called strategic vote. So I interrupted myself. All right, so Bernie kills it in Nevada. They scream socialism for like 2 or 3 days straight. And then right on the heels of Nevada is South Carolina. And the time between Nevada and South Carolina was wall to wall. Bernie is a radical socialist who's going to burn the place down. All ridiculous. So Joe kills it in South Carolina, which he's going to do. Just like Hillary did back in 2016. She won all of the southern and conservative states in the primaries. She won all of the states that the Democrats didn't have a chance to win in the general. That's where she got the bulk of her delegates. And so now Joe is repeating that little trick. And he won so big that now the news media and all the pundits have something else now to crow about. You know, I worked at Sirius XM for a long time. I worked at Wisconsin Public Radio for a long time. I've been on the inside here. And we were told every day, play the hits. That's why you only see 1 or 2 stories. Because the bosses are telling the producers and they're telling the program hosts, play the hits. And the hit today is Joe Biden's big comeback in South Carolina, poised for Super Tuesday. And he got all the free media right on the heels of 24, 36 hours straight of Bernie's a crazy radical socialist. Now South Carolina happens, and now the new hit to play over and over and over and over again. They can only talk about one thing. Here's our story. Joe's comeback. And the Democratic Party sees this beautiful opening. They convince Mayor Pete and Amy Klobuchar to drop out, endorse Joe. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. You saw it. But what I'm telling you is those couple of days between South Carolina and Super Tuesday, the media put their thumb on the scale. Not to say that men chomping cigars got into back offices and said, we want this guy. Here's how we're going to play it. No, they don't have to do that because it's just baked into the cake that you grab onto that one story that everybody's talking about, that one storyline. And then you allow what looks like a debate so you can have lots of conflict and lots of drama. But what you're really doing is you're giving Joe free media 24 hours a day for all those days leading up to Super Tuesday. And voters, much to my dismay, again, not so much because I'm a Bernie person, because I'm a democracy person. Voters bought into all that garbage and cast strategic votes and told the pollsters and told the reporters, I'm with Bernie on the issues, but my vote is strategic. Please, 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 please let's not repeat this. What might even be more fundamental to all of this and cause for my disheartened state today is that people base their vote on fear. Now, if you really like Joe and you've looked at his record and you know what you're doing, I'm not going to fight you. Vote for Joe. You're not who I'm talking to right now. I'm talking to people who cast their vote based on fear. That's no way to cast a vote. That's no way to make any kind of a decision unless you're running from a lion. How do we make any progress? How do we move forward as a nation if we're basing the most important decisions on fear, on playing it safe? What would ever get done? What would ever happen? Oh, he's not a Democrat. He's going to pull the whole party to the left. Well, hell, the current occupant is not a Republican, never was a Republican. Completely transformed the Republican Party. And yes, it is a comparison. It's a mirror comparison. In my view, Bernie would transform the Democratic Party into something that's actually democratic with a small d, and actually have some vision and some optimism about what we can achieve. And it's not like the parties don't shift and transform over time. Before the current occupant took over the Republican Party, the Tea Party took over the Republican Party. They were the outsiders and then the insiders. They took over. When Bill Clinton came into office, the so-called New Democrat, he and his generation transformed the Democratic Party, brought them into that upper right quadrant, worked hand in glove with Newt Gingrich. Talking about transforming parties, Ronald Reagan. Do I need to remind you that for years and years and years, the whole post-New Deal era, there were Republican presidents with 90% tax rates on the rich. Dwight Eisenhower, during his administration, highest earners in America had a 90% tax rate. Would never dream of the kind of deregulation that Reagan achieved in every possible area. I could go on and on. Before that, LBJ transformed the Democratic Party when he made a conscious decision to surrender the South. If you know anything about history at all, in order to pass the civil rights legislation, he knew he was going to lose the South. The famous quote, we're going to lose the South politically for a generation. Well, it's been a couple generations now. And I could go on. Parties change all the time. They transform. They take on new characteristics, often led by the president. So if and when Bernie becomes president and transforms the Democratic Party, that's just the way history works. And again, none of this should be on your mind as you cast your ballot. As you walk into that voting booth, none of this should matter. It's not your responsibility to make every single minutia of information align into a perfectly constructed puzzle. This three-dimensional puzzle, you gotta make every single little minutia fit, and then that's how you're going to decide on your vote. And one of the big pieces of the puzzle is fear. No. Just vote. Just look at the candidate, look at the positions, look at the demeanor, look at the record. That's my one magic wand wish. If I could wave a magic wand over every voter in Michigan, please turn off your television sets. Ignore the pundits. Give them your middle finger, do your basic due diligence, and then vote your conscience. Vote what you believe. The rest is garbage. And it's worse than garbage. It's piling up and littering the streets and smelling bad. That's what the pundits, that's what the media, that's what the establishment have done. And again, I've been on the inside of this media machine. And once more, just to be clear, it's not that they all get together and hatch a conspiracy. No, it's just that the commercial, the corporate media depend on viewers for advertising dollars. And then even public radio and television, they're a little bit better because they do take some listener funding, but they still get the bulk of their money from corporate donations and private donations from, you've seen the list, right? At the beginning of PBS NewsHour, the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation. I can't think now at the top of my head. Well, who are these people? 90% of them are hedge funds. They're hedge fund operators who created these foundations for tax purposes. And maybe they want to do some good in the world. That's fine. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But without going down that side road, corporate media, it's obvious. But even National Public Radio and public broadcasting television doesn't take a conspiracy. It's just they want and need viewers and listeners. It's their lifeblood. So they play the hits and they create buzz and free media for whoever's lucky enough to be the story of the day. And we don't want to go back to 2016, but obviously, Agent Orange was the story of the day, of the week, of the month, of the year. And as long as it was their sworn duty to play the hits every day, they were going to keep beating that drum. So the amount of free media that he got in 2016 and the amount of free media that Joe got in those 48 hours made the difference. And the public gets all swept up into it. It's all very exciting. They hear all the talking points and then they repeat them verbatim to their friends at the bar. And they post their screeds on social media. I got to tell you guys, here's some little friendly advice. The more certain you sound in your social feed, the dumber you sound. When you are so 100% certain that your guy is the one and the other guy is evil, and then you start parroting the talking points from corporate media, you reveal yourself as just an ignoramus. The more certain you are, the dumber you look. Just a little friendly advice there. So there you go. I'm going to follow my own advice. I do not know what's going to happen. I do not know who's more electable, and neither do you. I do not know what's going to happen in Michigan. By the time we speak again, we'll have that under our belt. All right, so what's my bottom line? Well, you've heard it. Vote your conscience. Don't try to be an amateur pundit, because even the professional pundits are just full of gas. So as an amateur pundit, you're going to even be more full of gas. You're just going to be full of fumes. You're just going to be full of their fumes. So don't be a pundit. Be a voter. Okay? All right. We'll see how this all plays out. And I love you. Take care. This episode of The Log is available right now wherever you find your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, iHeart, YouTube, and the podcast source. Enter Charles Burcell Presents in the search window. Or best yet, go to charlesburcell.com. There you'll find this and all the other series in the podcast family. Follow, comment, and contact me on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks to our flagship terrestrial station, River West Radio, riverwestradio.com. Theme music composed and performed by Peter Donalds. From the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee, I'm Charles Burcell.